mass Muslim immigration in Europe and conflict of culture, the lightning rod issue of Israel, Palestine, and the balance of the Middle East, and the Abraham Accords are just a few things that my new friend, Ahmed Sharif, and I discuss in this interview. Ahmed is a political analyst from the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, with a solid, balanced approach to improvement in the Middle East and an understanding of the fundamentalism of the Islamists and how they affect not just Europe and the West, but the Middle East itself. Now, this episode is brought to you by Go and Do Travel and the Wave Makers podcast or cruise. This is November 15th to 22nd this year, 2025. We are sailing down the Mexican Baja with Jacob Hansen of Thoughtful Faith, Jackson and Hayden Paul of The Stick of Joseph, Carden Ellis of Word Radio, Jasmine Rapoli, David Boyce of 52 Churches in 52 Weeks, and Dave Butler of Plain and Precious Things. You're going to hear great presentations from these individuals. We're going to bring the online community face-to-face in person on a Latter-day Saint-themed cruise. Go to CwicMedia.com, up to trips and events, and scroll down to Wave Makers. Going to be so much fun. Here's the interview. Now, you've described the Muslim Brotherhood as an ideological Trojan horse in Europe. What specific tactics or strategies do you believe the Brotherhood uses to embed itself in Western institutions under the guise of social activism?
Well, they use, I'd also like to say infiltrate in a way. They would go to student unions, local councils. They would go to spreading an ideology by way of funding like having an organization. And it's really, I don't want to say smart, but the way they're doing it isn't using violence. It's soft power, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the Western or the Europeans keep falling for it. And I'm on a daily basis throughout my tweets, throughout the threads I'm uploading. I'm trying my best to show people that they might wear suits and ties. They might shave their beards. They might look like they're all normal people trying to just be kind people and get some charity fundings. But realistically, I'm not saying all organizations, of course, but a big number of them are just utilizing it, taking advantage of people that are unaware of what's going on around them.
Now, you mentioned the universities and student councils and different things like that. Is that a primary target? Because we see the same thing in the U.S. here on Hamas coming in and kind of infiltrating into the campuses and getting activism really fomenting here on the university campuses. Is that a primary target, and why?
Well, it could be possibly a primary target due to it being an easy way. The youth.
Mm-hmm.
A young person can be easily swayed towards a certain goal or a certain topic as long as it fits his ideology. And most of the young people are very rash and brash, and they're very, they don't think before they act. So they utilize this. For example, let's say, and I'll take an example from the UAE. They would hold their meetings, their secret meetings, in educational places, and the reason is no one would think that, oh, he's a terrorist in a school. No one would think that. No one would think, oh, terrorist in a university. And when do they start thinking? When something happens. And that's what's happening in the West. When something happens, when it implodes, when something happens there, then they're like, oh, he's part of a terrorist group. Why not just get rid of it before it spreads? Think of it as a cancer. It starts spreading slowly but surely, and then when the whole body is just tired and done, then it's game over. But if I can get rid of it as soon as possible, then that's even better.
Now, you call for Europe specifically to show some moral courage by, as you're saying, banning, uprooting the Brotherhood's networks. What would an effective and principled approach look like? The one that would confront the extremism without, on our side, it's kind of like what they're doing oftentimes is they're working within our own system, right? Our democratic freedoms. We want freedom of speech. We want, even though we completely disagree with things, as long as there's not a call for violence, We want open discussion. That's how we kind of work through truth, right? But they use that in so many ways. So what would a principled approach look like in the West that would confront that extremism without undermining those democratic freedoms?
Well, first of all, just listen to the countries that already dealt with them. First of all, because it's not rocket science. You can just ask the UAE how they dealt with them, how we legally designated them as an extremist terrorist organization, how we dismantled their financial networks, how we shut down their organizations, how we're strengthening the integration politics here. And I mean, some countries are beginning to try, like France and the UK, they're starting slowly but surely. And it's never too late. As I said, going back to the question, designating them as a terrorist organization, dismantling their financial networks, blocking any way that they could infiltrate, whether it's in schools, whether it's in the education system, whether it's in the NGOs, just also counter their ideological narratives. It's clear as daylight. They don't have any tolerance in their teachings. They have no coexistence. They keep using jihad as a word to the gateway to heaven. It just doesn't make sense.
How would you handle immigration going to Europe? I mean, you look at that, there's mass immigration coming in from the Middle East. There is a definite cultural, just to begin with, not even going to the extreme of a Muslim Brotherhood, there's a strong cultural conflict from east to west, right? But beyond that, there is the infiltration of groups like the Muslim Brotherhood that go into the West, into Europe. What is a good policy for immigration there to keep borders somewhat at least open, but not allowing these types of teachings to come into Europe?
Well, first of all, establishing a clear legal pathway. It's create a well-regulated channel for work, study, and humanitarian protection. And when people see a fair system, they are less likely to rely on dangerous smuggling networks. That's one. And strengthening the external border control, investing in modern technology, joint patrols, and rapid response. And we could also maybe tackle the root causes. Let's say, for example, investing in development, stability, and security to reduce the migration process. And migration policy starts far beyond the European borders. And also, as I keep mentioning, and it's not I don't know how European countries would do that, but within the UAE, they could also, it's not wrong to get some advice or get some tips on how to do it from other countries that have dealt with it properly. So also, going to countries, listening to their feedback, not just trying to do things as things are going, is also a very smart and simple way.
There seems to be in the West a thought where where human nature brings us to a point where we want to simplify things to understand the world. So you have people on one end of the spectrum that say, look, keep the borders open completely. We want everybody coming in. Everybody deserves a chance if they want more opportunity in the West, if that's what they're looking for. And then you have on the other end of the spectrum, those that want to close everything off. There's a conflict between Christianity and Islam, and all Islam is bad. And you have just this feeling of concern for a radical change in what's happening in the West. How do you parse those two ends of the spectrum out to understand, first of all, we're all human beings. There's good and bad, perhaps, in everyone. But say, look, what the message oftentimes that comes out in the West is that Islam wants to take over in the West. They want to take over in Europe. And therefore, everything needs to be shut down. All of Islam is bad. How do you help the West understand what's going on in the Middle East already, that those conflicts already exist in the Middle East between extremism and and fundamentalism and what you might find more in versus what you might find more in the UAE?
I mean, it's a double-edged sword because, as you said, some people want to be like, "Hey, we're a welcoming country. Everyone can come in," and some people are like, "No, just stop. We don't want anyone coming in." So, in a positive way, having more people come in, depending on which country you are at. Let's say, for example, I'm a very small European country. I will need more people coming into my country, but at the same time, I don't know what ideology this person has. So it's a double-edged sword at the same time. So being in the middle is way harder than being very supportive of this side or this side. And this hard tactic is what the UAE has been doing for years, and no one has been paying attention until lately, until the Abraham Accords in 2020. That was when the people were like, "Oh, hey, wait, maybe this country is actually a mediator, not part of a certain side." And it's way harder to keep consistent at this because you have different ideologies, different people, the good and the bad. There are so many good Muslims. There are so many good Christians, so many good Jewish people. There's there's more good than bad.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're seeing on social media, on news flashes, are basically the bad people. And that's where they just, I mean, I would understand why some Western people would be like, "Hey, most Islamic people are bad." It's because the news only shows the bad people, never shows the good people. And when they show it, other Muslims keep fighting with the other Muslims, you know? And it's just a very big headache that um, it's way smaller than leaders. It's just like the citizens having this fight with each other. It's like Muslims always have issues with Muslims. Christians also always have an issue with Christians, and the same with other faiths. But with Islam, it's like if anything happens, it's a Muslim that did it. And sadly enough, most of the time it is. And we don't consider them as Islamic people or Muslims because of what they're doing. Our religion or the real Islam doesn't teach us to blow things up, doesn't teach us to be violent or to be filled with hatred. It teaches us to coexist, tolerate, and always live in peace and knowledge. Which is why I want to also talk about the Abrahamic family house that we have in Abu Dhabi. It's one street where you can see a synagogue, a church, and a mosque all together. And I always keep bringing it up because of how beautiful it is. And even today, I was just walking across the mall. I saw a Sikh, I saw a Jew, I even saw a Christian, and they were walking, smiling, and having normal conversations with each other. They were just walking around. I don't know why people don't can't live with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's surprising, really.
Yeah, it's the extremists that cause the problems. It's fundamentalism. Now, talking about that tolerance, going to the Abraham Accords, this was hailed as a historic breakthrough. We're 5 years in now on those Abraham Accords. Do you believe the initial momentum has been sustained after October 7th? Is it revved back up? Are we going to see progress with the Abraham Accords, or has it already plateaued?
I mean, it's most likely that there will be an improvement within the Abraham Accords. There will be more uh, work going into it because the Abraham Accords really marked a transformative pivot for the region. For decades, the narrative was if you normalize, you betray. And the UAE just shattered that mindset, showing that standing for Palestinian dignity and pursuing regional partnerships are not mutually exclusive, you know? And the trade between the UAE and Israel exceeded 2.5 billion in just 2 years. Like beyond trade, collaborations in health, agriculture, and tech, they continue to deepen. Emirati artists also are exhibiting in Tel Aviv, and Israeli entrepreneurs are also presenting in Abu Dhabi. And for young people, this isn't about signatures on paper. It's a window to what regional cooperation can look like, real, dynamic, and full of possibility. So going back, supporting Palestinian rights remains a principle, but engagement can build bridges that isolation never could. And the Abraham Accords show that bold leadership can turn historical divisions into shared futures.
How dependent are the Abraham Accords on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? I mean, if there is not more progress in that conflict, is that going to hold up the Abraham Accords?
The Abraham Accords can definitely stand. It will never be affected by any influences or effects. But the the more we can spread awareness to the people that the Abraham Accords is normalizing a relationship that can build, not destroy. We're not here to destroy any country. We're not here to destroy any human being. We're here to defend the human rights of people. We're here to defend the dignity, and that's where the Abraham Accords come. They're not just as I said, it's not just a signature on a paper. It's not just, oh, we're just telling people that we're friends. No, we're actually trying to do something. We're working together. And as we're seeing right now, what we've done since 2020 has been such a great improvement for both countries, whether it's a diplomatic relationship or agreements.
How do Emirati citizens and in your society perceive the normalization process today? Is that support growing? Is it waning? Where's it at?
Well, to be frank, the UAE citizens, myself as well, whatever our leadership tells us, we support 110% before they even announce it. As soon as we know what our leadership wants, we're like, yes, we agree, because we've seen, historically speaking, everything that our leadership has done has led to a greater future. The UAE was just 7 different states in the desert, and with an agreement finished in 1972, we saw years later Burj, the highest skyscraper. We saw the greatest mediator in the Middle East. We saw so many aids to different countries, humanitarian aid to Sudan, Gaza. We've seen so many things pan out, and we didn't rely on oil. We're now currently, as Sheikh Abdullah said, by 2030, if I'm not mistaken, AI is going to be the new oil. And this is crazy to see how vision for the UAE citizens is always met with reality. People's visions are our reality. And going back to the question, we trust our leadership 110%. We don't even need to wait for news to trust. We already trust them blindly. It's blind faith, because we're used to being glorified. We're used to being great citizens. We have the greatest passport. We have the greatest diplomatic connections. And this is because we have great leadership that love the country, that love the citizens, and love the people that are also living in their nation. Because let's be honest, as a UAE citizen, I have free healthcare, free education, and I have all the necessities I need. I am in Sharjah. As soon as you get married, you get a key to your new house. That's how beautiful the UAE is. So most UAE citizens, they don't need to even look at politics in the UAE, because they just trust the leadership. Same with me. I look into politics because it's my major, but I trust my leadership. That's why I go full steam ahead.
How did that happen? If you had 7 separate tribes that I'm guessing had conflict before then, how did that come to be? How did you bring 7 tribes together and unify them?
Well, going back to Sheikh Zayed, our founding father, the late Sheikh Zayed, he didn't look at it as tribes with conflict. He looked at it as a opportunity. He never looked at anything as something that's just there. He looked at things as opportunity. And I'm from the city of Al Ain, where Sheikh Zayed and the royal family were brought up. And Al Ain was literally just a desert. He turned sand into a green place. And now Al Ain is called the Garden City. And that shows how his vision goes far beyond just oil. And that's where the UAE comes into play. It's written in the name, the United Arab Emirates. Emirates, Al-Imarat, it means states. And those states, they were correct, they were not together. And then the different leaders were gathered together in 1971, actually. And they had the initial agreement, and then the seventh Emirates joined in 1972, which created the United Arab Emirates. And until then, We've seen nothing but future turned into reality, and vision turned into something that we see in front of us, like the Mars Hope probe, etc.
Well, it's a success story. It's pretty rare. That doesn't happen very often. Now, Iran's regional posture continues to be confrontational. Do you believe the Abraham Accords have helped deter Iranian influence and shifted the battleground?
Well, the Abraham Accords always comes into play where it's vital and vitally needed. Regarding the Iranian regime, the Abraham Accord, I would like to say, and put it short and simple, it stood tall because of how strong it is. I mean, people really underestimate the Abraham Accords, especially on social media. They don't know how powerful it is and how smart it is. It's
What
uh,
makes it so? What gives it its power? Why is it powerful?
it's powerful because of, as I mentioned, it's beyond trade. It's different collaborations in different sectors, and it's also something that, let's say, it broke the the mindset, the norm that we had, because as I said, the narrative was if you normalize, that means you're betraying, and it's not the case at all. It's just a narrative that was pushed, and people started believing it and just using it as a fact, and it's surprising, really, to me as an Emirati to see that what's what's betraying? Define betray, And
Mm.
as soon as you ask that question, they're like, "Well, you're being friends. You're just trying to be trying to create a relationship, a diplomatic relationship." I'm like, "Yes. How is that betraying?" I'm literally uh, exchanging diplomatic relationships. I'm having different deals. I am also uh, using health, agriculture, and tech. And the Abraham Accords are literally just that. It's not just a signature on a paper.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that a little bit later. That idea of betrayal and the relationship there in just a minute. But back just for my own curiosity's sake, there was back on the attack from Hamas on October 7th. There were rumors at the time that Saudi Arabia was in talks to sign the Abraham Accords. Do you think that had anything to do with the timing of October 7th? And that Hamas was saying, well, wait a minute, if Saudi Arabia signs on this is a bad sign for us. We want the conflict, and this is going to stabilize and normalize much more at a much greater reach the relationship with Israel.
Well, it's important to clarify that October 7th was a turning point for the entire region, not just for one country. And the rumors involving our neighbors, Saudi Arabia, reflected a broader regional momentum towards exploring normalization and new security arrangement. Now, many countries were evaluating their own strategic options, of course, at the time, driven by shared concerns. Now, as I'm a political analyst in the UAE, I mainly talk about the UAE. So the UAE had mainly made its position clear through the Abraham Accords, proving its independent diplomatic approach. October 7th didn't change that. It reinforced the urgency for the region to prioritize stability and real opportunities. So this isn't really about one nation's timeline. It's about a collective regional realization that the old status quo is unsustainable.
There's rumors now that Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Lebanon are in quiet talks on the Abraham Accords. What would change if those countries did sign on to the Abraham Accords? Would there be a radical shift in the mindset throughout the rest of the Middle East on normalization?
It's important to remember that normalization is a sovereign decision for each country, rooted in its own strategic calculations and national interests. Now, if every country moves at its own pace, some will prioritize economic diversification, others security guarantees, and other domestic considerations. Now, new security partnerships will deter shared threats and counter extremist networks. And that's where I would like to just put a, uh, a point in the end of the sentence to just make it simple and short.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, There's talk about actually the Abraham Accords expanding into Central Asia and Africa. What would the lines be, or the guidelines be, the values in expanding these agreements? What would be needed for that to happen?
Well, let's imagine trade routes linking to Tel Aviv and Tashkent, Abu Dhabi to Accra, or Riyadh to Kigali. Accelerating investment, tech exchange, and infrastructure development across the entire continents. Now, let's talk about energy and sustainability in that case. There will be joint renewable energy projects, water security initiatives, and climate innovation could flourish. And human development-wise, expanded educational exchange, scholarships, and even healthcare cooperation. And to me, most importantly, is the healthcare cooperation, because many countries really lack, in healthcare expertise. They lack in new technology. They lack in this. They lack in that. So expanding them would be amazing, because we definitely benefited from the Abraham Accords, and we want to see other countries benefit. We want to see the peace. We want to see coexistence and tolerance. And knowing that some countries, as you said, would maybe look into it, I'm all for it. They get a very good thumbs up for that.
Yeah, and I go to Egypt a lot, and one of the things I see there, these are two countries, Israel and Egypt, that were at war at one point, a couple times, and yet now today, through economic ties, there are changes in mentality, and I see it among the citizens. I talk to them, but they've got, especially with energy, they've got a very strong tie in energy between those two countries, and it changes everything. Will the Abraham Accords then bring that? I mean, you kind of implied that already, but will that bring further economic ties that can help normalization through a process of economic progress for the citizens of each of those countries?
And you're talking in the case of Egypt and Israel, right?
Well, beyond. I mean, going through beyond Egypt. I'm saying, using Egypt as an example, but
Oh, okay.
I've seen the change there, right? And I think that it seems to me that those economic ties to Israel and normalizing things through economic ties can be a real motivation for citizens, not just governments, but for citizens to normalize.
I mean, definitely the cooperation is always powerful, because we have a saying, one hand can't clap alone. You always need two hands to clap. And that saying goes deep into what we're talking about, the Abraham Accords, and having more countries. As you said, Egypt and Israel have a good energy and economic ties. And those interests, they would reshape mindsets. And over the years, those joint projects, the cooperation, are proving that shared benefits can soften even the deepest historical tensions. And the Abraham Accords are built on that same logic, but we take it even further by opening direct channels, by normalizing daily interactions, not just formal treaties. And it's more of in a very layman's terms way, getting over history. It's good to understand history. It's good to know history. It's built on history, but not on grudges, not on hatred. Moving past that, going into cooperation, is what makes the country a leading country. It's what makes it powerful. It's what makes it flourish even more.
In May, President Trump visited Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and made some pretty strong deals there with each of those countries in investment. You've got, from Saudi Arabia, you've got a $600 billion commitment in investment in the U.S. I think it was $142 billion in sales for military equipment to the Saudi Arabia. Qatar's making some real commitments in what's going on there. How does that affect the UAE in a stronger U.S. relationship with each of those two countries?
How does it affect the UAE and the relationship between?
How does it affect the UAE within the Middle East, and how does it affect the UAE and its relationship with the U.S.?
I mean,
does it help or does it hinder it?
well, of course, investments and deals always help. And here's the key: these deals reflect each country's own strategy and priorities. The UAE has long positioned itself as an independent, future-focused partner, investing heavily in tech, energy transition, AI, and global logistics. Our relationship isn't transactional, it's built on deep security. It's built on economic and innovation ties that have matured over the decades. Now, Saudi Arabia's large investments and Qatar's commitments, they don't undermine or sideline. Instead, they create a more dynamic and a very beautiful regional environment. A rising tide of investment and modernization across the Gulf and the Middle East ultimately strengthens the entire region's global relevance. And for the UAE, this is a zero-sum game. We welcome strong neighbors because we believe in regional growth. We always grow together, collective opportunity. It's never a rivalry. It's visionary projects, diversified partnerships. Like we have Masdar, ADNOC, and those global expansions and diplomatic initiatives like the Abraham Accords and mediation roles. We keep it uniquely positioned, regardless of bilateral deals on the other countries are signing. In short, these new deals don't diminish the UAE. They prove that our approach to openness, diversification, and strategic foresight is the blueprint for others to follow. And learning and knowing, even seeing it live, that Saudi Arabia and Qatar are having these commitments and investments, it makes me feel proud to be part of the GCC. It makes me feel proud to be an Arab because this region, the whole region, not just the GCC, even the MENA region, is growing to see that there are deals, there are investments, and it's not just, hey, we need this for oil, this for this. No, it's there's tech, there's AI, and there's other sectors that there has been investments in. And it's beautiful. We're all growing together. It's collective. We're on the same team.
Now, President Trump also met recently with the new president of Syria, Ahmed Sharif. What do you see happening there in Syria? You've got, a land that has been riddled with civil war for so long. Ahmed al-Shara actually comes from an organization that was at one point, at least, and maybe in some countries still considered a terrorist organization, tied to al-Qaeda at some points. Where do you see the future of Syria going? Syria seems so pivotal to me in terms of, geography, its location, and what happens there. What do you see happening in Syria?
Well, after Trump met al-Shara, that signals to me, I'm not sure if maybe you can agree on this, but it signals that Syria might be entering a new phase of quiet diplomatic recalibration. This could be seen as a symbolic bridge to test possible pathways out of Syria's long isolation. This could also show regional reintegration. Many Arab countries have gradually begun to re-engage with Syria, not because they endorse the regime's past actions, but because they see that permanent isolation has achieved little in terms of stability. And bringing Syria back into the regional fold may create leverage to encourage reforms, counter extremism, and facilitate reconstruction. In regards to reconstruction, there's also reconstructing economics with billions in rebuilding needed. Syria will require foreign investment, humanitarian aid, and infrastructure partnerships. And countries like the UAE have already signaled a readiness to support rebuilding. And we provided that there is a serious commitment to stability and sovereignty. And for the Syrian people, any future must prioritize them, the people, not just power balances, also opportunities for the youth, economic revitalization, and genuine reconciliation are crucial to prevent another cycle of extremism and displacement. Because let's be clear on one thing: you can't have a state, you can't have a nation without the people being behind it. Every country needs to have its people behind it. The UAE, I always bring this up. The UAE has the most loyal citizens to a country I've ever seen. I mean, I could be biased a little bit, and I'm proud to be biased on this case because the UAE prioritizes the people. And that's what Syria also has to do. It's also part of the job to prioritize their people as well.
Now, you had a recent tweet you put out that said, talking basically about the subject of hate. And you said the following, I quote here: real nations build entire cities, launch satellites, and unite people without a single scripted tragedy. How, this isn't just a Middle East issue. This is something I see in Latin America, in other parts of Asia, but a common thread that goes through a society that is stricken with poverty and real problems, real issues, is to put the problem outside somewhere else and to assign a hatred to an organization, to a group, to a nation, whatever it might be. How much of that exists in the Middle East, and what is the solution?
Well, regarding hatred and the tweet where I said that real nations build. First of all, real nations build without a single rigid script. They adapt, innovate, and course correct as new challenges emerge. A dangerous common thread amongst many conflicts in the Middle East is the way poverty and socioeconomic frustration are manipulated. Instead of addressing unemployment, weak governance, or lack of opportunity, leaders or extremist groups often redirect that anger outward, blaming a neighboring country, a minority group, or even an external power. And this strategy doesn't solve problems, it only worsens it. And how much does it exist? Well, it exists way too much, more than it should. Shouldn't at all, but like more than maybe normally you'd see in other countries. It remains one of the core obstacles to real peace, to be honest. And when over 60% of the population is under 30 and youth unemployment hovers around 25 to 30%, you have a pool of frustrated young people easily swayed by populist or extremist narratives. The solution, there's many, and some of them could be having strong state institutions, government that deliver real services and justice, not just empty slogans, and economic empowerment, create jobs, encourage entrepreneurship, and open pathways for the youth. We see so many youth initiatives in the UAE, so many in Bahrain, so many in the different, in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, you name it. We see so many youth initiatives. Why can't we see that in other countries as well? Why can't we see regional cooperation? So the shift from zero-sum rivalries to shared projects in energy, tech, and infrastructure that could create interdependence rather than divisions. And that's how I could sum it up.
Now, and that's look, you're obviously someone, Ahmed, who cares, right? You're going to care about the people. You've talked a lot about the people of the UAE and the people of Syria, and every example you're talking about. How do you solve these issues for the people? A lot of people would say, okay, here I am in America, and I feel the same way. I care. I this matters to me. I care about individuals, right? But I'm here in America, in a wealthy nation, right? You're in the UAE, a wealthy nation. And people might say, well, you're just a bunch of privileged guys. Of course you can talk like this. You've got money, you've got opportunity, etc. How do you, and you're the problem also, right? You see, you're part of the problem, right? So how do you convey a message of hope, responsibility, and, as you're saying, productivity to other countries, other individuals that find themselves in dire straits, right? Difficult situations? How do you promote a message of hope, responsibility, and productivity over a common narrative or message of oppression, victimhood, and revenge?
Well, when a nation or a person is cornered by crisis, it's easy to feel that despair is the only language left. But the truth is, hardship isn't a full stop. It's a comma in our story. And hope isn't naive optimism, it's responsibility. It's the decision to see potential where others see rubble. It's the courage to stand up, not just for survival, but for building something better. Now, the UAE was never born rich. We were never born and just found oil out of nowhere. We started from nothing. We started from, as I said, a desert that turned into one of the greatest countries in the world. And countries have a duty to their people to rise beyond slogans and rise beyond the blame games, because we see so many blame games that we're just tired of hearing on and on. It's like a broken record, really. And even in the hardest times, you can choose to invest in education, create opportunities, and protect dignity. It might sound difficult, but you have a very strong sentence that many people live by: the American dream. You have the UAE that calls the impossible is possible. We have these slogans and we live by these slogans. We make them happen. We talk the talk, but we walk the walk. And it's very easy to talk, but it's way harder to walk. Very hard, yeah, very hard to walk. So for individuals, the message is the same. You are more than your circumstances. Your struggle can be a seed for change, for yourself and for those around you. In every difficulty lies the invitation to lead, quietly or boldly, by showing that progress is built by choice, day by day. And the real question isn't whether the future can be better. The question is whether we are brave enough to build it.
Let me finish with this. You are heavily engaged with youth policy, right, and diplomacy. Thinking of the youth in the UAE and the Middle East as more broadly, what gives you the most hope and what gives you the most concern about the direction the Middle East is currently heading?
Regarding the youth, right?
Yes.
Well, as the UAE has always taught me, we're always selfless. And I always thank our leadership for never making us feel like we're missing something or in need for something. But other countries do need that help. And we always see initiatives in our country. We also see initiatives that merge us and different Arab countries. But what we need to see is an Arab country that goes for an initiative for their own citizens, not just waiting for other countries to be like, hey, you want to participate in this with us or participate in that with us. No, we want other countries to see that, because having the youth feeling secure, feeling like they are safe, they have a safe haven, which is their own country, won't let them delve into ideologies that are extremist or very violent ideologies. It wouldn't make them run away from their countries. In fact, it would make them stay and try to build, because everything starts with the youth. They're the foundation. Whether some people would agree or not, the youth are the foundation, because, I mean, you build on them. Basically, they're the future. You can't just be like, hey, after I'm done, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to wait until the future happens. No, the UAE has a vision, has a plan, has everything ready. That's why we say in Saudi Arabia, they say the vision of 2030. They're working on it. The UAE has a vision. We're working on it. Other countries should definitely do the same, especially for the youth, because they are the ones that are going to take the country from ground up. And if the country is already up, even higher.
Appreciate that. Completely agree. Ahmed, I really appreciate your time. Love listening to what you have to say and getting these perspectives. I'm very excited about bringing you in front of my audience also, and have them listen to you and what you have to say and your perspectives over there in the UAE. I hope we can get you back sometime, but I really appreciate you coming on today.
My pleasure, Greg. Thank you so much.